Grandma and grandson disappeared, vanished, in '84. Grandma's hidden truth stuns a small town. In the endless fields of Alberta, Canada, a grandmother and her young grandson walked into the dusk. By morning, they were gone, leaving behind a farm frozen in time and a mystery that would haunt a community for decades. Picture this. Alberta, Canada, 1984. The world is simpler, quieter. Fields of golden wheat stretch under a vast, unyielding sky. In the small farming community of Willow Creek, life moves slowly until it doesn't. On a crisp October evening, Helen Carver, a 62-year-old widow, and her 8-year-old grandson Jamie vanish from their family farm without a trace. No screams, no signs of a struggle, no witnesses. Just gone. Their disappearance would spark one of the most perplexing mysteries in Alberta's history, a case that would linger in the minds of locals, investigators, and even strangers who heard the tale. But it wasn't until 10 years later, when a rusted toy truck was found in a barn loft, that the truth began to claw its way out. A truth so unsettling, it would make you question everything you thought you knew about family, trust, and secrets buried in plain sight. Let's go back to that evening, October 12, 1984. Helen was a fixture in Willow Creek, known for her warm smile and endless trays of homemade apple pie at church bake sales. She'd lived on the Carver farm for nearly 40 years, raising her son Daniel after her husband George passed in a tractor accident in '66. Helen was tough, the kind of woman who could fix a fence in a snowstorm and still have supper on the table by 6. But lately folks noticed a change. Helen seemed distracted. She'd stare off into the distance during conversations, her hands trembling slightly as she poured coffee. Some chalked it up to age, others to grief over George, even after all these years. But a few whispered about her son, Daniel, who'd left town abruptly 2 years prior, leaving Helen to care for Jamie. Jamie was a bright, curious kid with a mop of brown hair and a love for toy trucks. He'd spend hours racing them through the dirt paths around the farm, mimicking engine sounds. Helen doted on him, calling him her little adventurer. They were inseparable, two souls bound by love in a world that felt increasingly uncertain. That evening, neighbors saw Helen and Jamie walking toward the back fields near the old barn. Helen carried a basket, maybe for picking late-season berries. Jamie clutched his favorite red toy truck. It was a familiar sight, nothing unusual. But when the sun rose the next day, the farm was eerily silent. The first to notice was Maggie Thompson, Helen's closest friend and neighbor. Maggie stopped by to drop off a quilt she'd made for Jamie's upcoming birthday. The farmhouse door was ajar, the kitchen untouched, dishes from supper still in the sink. Maggie called out, but only the wind answered. She checked the barn, the fields, even the root cellar. Nothing. By noon, Maggie alerted the RCMP, Canada's federal police. Constable Roy Bennett arrived, expecting a simple case of a grandmother and child lost in the woods. But as hours turned to days, the case grew darker. The search was massive. Hundreds of volunteers combed the fields, forests, and nearby rivers. Helicopters buzzed overhead. Dogs sniffed through the underbrush. The Carver's farm became a hive of activity, yet no clues emerged. Helen's basket was found near the barn, its contents spilled, berries crushed into the dirt. But there were no footprints, no torn clothing, no signs of a struggle. Jamie's toy truck was missing, assumed to be with him. The police interviewed neighbors, friends, even distant relatives. Daniel, Jamie's father, was unreachable, his last known address a rundown apartment in Calgary. Rumors swirled. Had Helen taken Jamie and run? Was it an accident? Or was something sinister at play? Weeks passed, then months. The case went cold, but Willow Creek never forgot. The farm stood abandoned, its windows dark, fields overgrown. Some said the place was cursed. others that Helen's secrets had caught up with her. No one could imagine that a decade later, a single discovery would crack the case wide open, a discovery that would raise more questions than answers. In 1994, Tom Ellis, a young farmer who'd bought the Carver property, climbed into the barn loft to clear out junk. Among the hay and rusted tools, he found a small red toy truck, Jamie's. Tucked inside was a folded piece of paper, its edges brittle. Scrawled in a child's shaky handwriting were 2 words: "She lied." Tom's hands shook as he read it. Who was she? And what had Jamie known? A child's toy truck, hidden for a decade, held a secret that could unravel a mystery. 2 words, written in fear, would turn a cold case into a chilling puzzle. She lied. Willow Creek, 1994. The world has changed. Cell phones are creeping into pockets. The internet is a new frontier. But in this quiet Alberta town, the past refuses to stay buried. Tom Ellis, a 30-year-old farmer with dreams of reviving the old Carver property, stumbles upon a relic that sends a shiver down his spine. Jamie Carver's red toy truck, untouched for 10 years, hidden in the barn loft. Inside, a note in a child's scrawl. She lied. Those 2 words ignite a firestorm of questions. Who was Jamie accusing? Was it his grandmother Helen, or someone else entirely? And why was the note hidden, as if meant to be found years later? Tom's discovery pulls the RCMP back into a case they'd long given up on, but the answers they uncover only deepen the mystery. Tom wasn't looking for trouble when he climbed into that loft. He'd bought the Carver farm at auction, dirt cheap because of its grim history. Locals warned him about the ghosts lingering there, but Tom laughed it off. He was practical, focused on turning the land into a thriving wheat operation. That day, he was clearing out the barn to make room for equipment. The loft was a mess. Hay bales, old tools, a broken chair. Then he saw it, a flash of red beneath a tarp. He pulled it free, revealing a toy truck, its paint chipped but unmistakable. Tom had heard the stories about Jamie and Helen, and his gut told him this was no ordinary find. When he opened the truck's tiny cargo bed and found the note, he nearly dropped it. She lied, written in pencil, the letters uneven, as if written in a hurry or in fear. Tom called the RCMP immediately. Constable Sarah Nguyen, a new officer with a knack for cold cases, arrived within hours. She bagged the truck and note, her mind racing. The note was a bombshell, but it raised more questions than it answered. Was Jamie alive when he wrote it? Was he trying to expose someone? And why hide it in the loft? Sarah reopened the case, digging into old files and interviewing anyone who'd known the Carvers. The note's discovery hit Willow Creek like a thunderbolt. Locals gathered at the diner, swapping theories. Some believed Helen had lied to Jamie, maybe about where they were going that night. Others suspected a third party, someone who'd been overlooked in '84. Sarah's investigation focused on Helen's life before the disappearance. She was a model citizen, but cracks began to show. Neighbors recalled Helen receiving late-night phone calls in the months before she vanished, her voice hushed and tense. Maggie Thompson, now in her 70s, admitted Helen had confided in her about Daniel's troubles. Daniel Carver, Jamie's father, was a drifter with a gambling problem. He'd racked up debts with dangerous people in Calgary, loan sharks who didn't take kindly to unpaid tabs. Helen had bailed him out once, draining her savings, but Daniel kept falling deeper. Maggie said Helen was terrified, not for herself, but for Jamie. She'd do anything to protect that boy, Maggie whispered. Anything. Sarah tracked down Daniel, now living in a trailer park outside Edmonton. He was a broken man, haunted by his past. When shown a photo of the note, he paled. "That's Jamie's writing," he said, his voice cracking, but he swore he knew nothing about their disappearance. He'd left Willow Creek in '82, too ashamed to face his mother after his latest gambling spree. Sarah wasn't convinced. Daniel's debts pointed to a motive. Maybe his creditors had targeted Helen and Jamie to send a message. But there was no evidence, only suspicion. The barn itself became a focal point. Sarah's team scoured it, finding faint scratches on the loft ladder, as if someone had climbed it in a hurry. A single strand of gray hair was caught in a nail, possibly Helen's. But the loft held no other clues, no blood, no signs of a struggle. The note's message gnawed at Sarah. She lied. Was Jamie accusing Helen of hiding something? Or had someone else betrayed them both? As Sarah dug deeper, she uncovered a detail from '84 that had been overlooked. A stranger seen near the farm days before the disappearance, driving a dark sedan. No one knew who he was, and the lead had fizzled out. Now it felt like a loose thread worth pulling. Sarah finds an old photo in the Carver farmhouse, tucked behind a loose floorboard. It shows Helen, Jamie, and a man with a scar on his cheek, standing by the barn. On the back, in Helen's handwriting, "Don't let him near us." The photo, combined with the note, suggests Helen was hiding from someone specific, a man who might hold the key to their fate. A faded photo, hidden for a decade, revealed a face from the shadows, a man with a scar whose presence spelled danger, and a secret Helen would take to her grave. The Carver farm, 1994. A single photograph, slipped behind a floorboard, changes everything. It shows Helen, Jamie, and a man with a jagged scar on his cheek, his eyes cold and calculating. On the back, Helen's handwriting pleads, "Don't let him near us." For Constable Sarah Nguyen, the photo is a lightning strike in the reopened case of Helen and Jamie Carver's 1984 disappearance. Who was this man? Was he the stranger spotted near Willow Creek before the vanishing? And why was Helen so afraid? As Sarah chases this new lead, the mystery of the note, "She lied," takes on a darker edge. Was Helen running from this man, or was she hiding something even more dangerous? The photo sends Sarah on a hunt for answers, pulling her into the underbelly of Alberta's criminal world. She starts with Daniel, Jamie's father, whose debts are a persistent shadow over the case. Daniel claims he doesn't recognize the scarred man, but his eyes flicker with unease. Sarah presses, sensing he's holding back. Reluctantly, Daniel admits to owing money to a loan shark named Victor Kane in '84, a man known for his brutality. Kane worked out of Calgary, but Daniel swears he never came to Willow Creek. Sarah's not so sure. She digs into Kane's past, finding a mugshot from '82. The man has a scar on his left cheek, just like the one in the photo. It's a match. Victor Kane is a ghost by '94, rumored to have died in a bar brawl years ago earlier. But Sarah tracks down one of his old associates, a reformed crook named Lenny, now running a garage. Lenny's cagey, but a few pointed questions loosen his tongue. He confirms Kane was a loan shark, the kind who'd break legs for a missed payment, or worse. Kane had a grudge against Daniel, who'd tried to skip town on a $50,000 debt. Lenny recalls Kane mentioning a farm job in '84, something personal, not just business. He said he'd make an example out of someone, Lenny mutters, avoiding Sarah's gaze. Didn't say who. The implication is chilling. Helen and Jamie might have been collateral damage in Kane's vendetta. Sarah returns to Willow Creek, re-examining the farm with Kane in mind. She focuses on the barn loft, where Jamie's note was found. The scratches on the ladder and the gray hair suggest someone, maybe Jamie or Helen, climbed up there in a panic. But why? To hide? To escape? Sarah's team uses new forensic tech to analyze the note itself. The pencil smudges reveal a second partial fingerprint, too degraded to match, but it's enough to confirm someone else handled it. The note's placement, tucked inside the toy truck, feels deliberate, like a message meant to be found later. But by whom? And why wait 10 years? The community buzzes with renewed fear. Older folks at the diner recall the dark sedan from '84, now tied to Kane in their minds. Maggie Thompson, Helen's friend, drops a bombshell. Helen had been withdrawing cash in secret, stashing it somewhere. She thought she could buy her way out of trouble, Maggie says, her voice thick with regret. I should have stopped her. Sarah wonders if Helen planned to pay off Kane, but the money never made it to him. Where was that cash? And did Kane come looking for it? As Sarah digs, she uncovers another layer. Helen's own secrets. Old bank records show she'd been sending money to a P.O. box in British Columbia under a different name. Ellen Marie. Who was Ellen Marie? A friend? A relative? Or was Helen planning a new life, one where she and Jamie could disappear for good? The idea of Helen orchestrating a runaway clashes with the note's accusation. She lied. If Jamie wrote it, what had Helen lied about? Their escape? Or something that put them in Kane's path? Sarah finds a hidden compartment in the farmhouse. Attic, containing a small duffel bag with $10,000 in cash and a bus ticket to Vancouver, dated October 13, 1984, the day after Helen and Jamie vanished. Tucked inside is a photo of a young woman in her 20s, labeled Ellen Marie, 59. The woman's face is strikingly similar to Helen's. Was this Helen's past identity, or someone tied to her secrets? A hidden stash of cash and a ticket to nowhere pointed to a desperate plan. But the shadow of Ellen Marie loomed large, whispering secrets that could bury the truth forever. October, 1994, Willow Creek. The Carver farm yields another secret. A duffel bag with $10,000, a bus ticket to Vancouver, and a photo of a woman named Ellen Marie, who looks like a younger Helen. For Constable Sarah Nguyen, these finds are a beacon in the fog of Helen and Jamie Carver's 1984 disappearance. Was Helen planning to flee with Jamie, using a new identity? Or was Ellen Marie someone else, a ghost from Helen's past who held the key to their fate? As Sarah follows the money trail, the note, "She lied," echoes louder. Jamie's accusation points to betrayal. But the deeper Sarah digs, the more she realizes the truth might be a trap, one that's been waiting 10 years to spring. The bus ticket, dated October 13, 1984, suggests Helen planned to leave the day after she and Jamie vanished. But they never boarded that bus. Sarah checks records with the Vancouver terminal, finding no trace. The $10,000 is a fortune for a widowed farmer, raising questions about where it came from. Sarah revisits Maggie Thompson, who admits Helen sold off livestock in secret before '84, claiming it was to settle debts. But whose debts? Daniel's or her own? The photo of Ellen Marie is the real puzzle. Sarah runs the name through a database, finding an Ellen Marie Harper, born in 1922, who disappeared from Vancouver in '59 after a hit-and-run incident. The resemblance to Helen is uncanny, but Helen's official records show her as Helen Carver, born in Alberta with no ties to BC. Was Helen living a double life? Sarah dives into Ellen Marie's history, uncovering a murky past. Ellen was linked to a shady real estate deal in Vancouver, tied to Victor Kane's father, a property mogul with mob connections. After the hit-and-run, Ellen vanished, and the case went cold. Sarah's theory grows darker. What if Helen was Ellen Marie, who fled to Alberta to escape her past? If so, did Kane's family track her down in '84, seeking revenge or payment? The link to Victor Kane, the scarred loan shark, feels too close for coincidence. Sarah returns to Lenny, Kane's old associate, who drops a bombshell. Kane's sister, Carla, was the hit-and-run victim, left paralyzed. Kane blamed Ellen Marie and swore he'd find her no matter how long it took. The farm becomes a crime scene again, as Sarah's team hunts for traces of Kane's presence in '84. They find a rusted knife buried near the barn, its handle etched with VK, Victor Kane's initials. Forensic tests show traces of blood too old to DNA test, but enough to fuel suspicion. Was this a weapon used to threaten Helen, or worse? Sarah re-examines the loft, where Jamie's note was found, and notices a faint outline in the dust. Missed before. A child's handprint, as if Jamie pressed his palm into the floor while hiding. The image haunts her. Was Jamie alone up there, terrified, writing his note? Or was he trying to leave a clue for someone to find? The community splits over the findings. Some believe Helen was a victim, hunted by Cain for her past sins. Others whisper she orchestrated everything, abandoning Jamie to save herself. Sarah uncovers another clue. A letter in the post office, never picked up, addressed to Helen from Ellie in Denver, Colorado, postmarked September 1984. It reads, "I found you. We need to start over. Come to me." The letter's cryptic, but suggests Helen had an ally, or a threat, someone else waiting for her. Sarah traces Ellie, finding an Eleanor Harper, a retired nurse in Denver, who refuses to talk, but confirms knowing a young Ellen Marie. The connection tightens. The mystery. Was Helen planning to reunite with her past self only to be stopped? Sarah receives an anonymous tip about a sighting in '84, a woman and boy matching Helen's and Jamie's description at a remote Alberta gas station the night they vanished. A trucker saw them with a man in a dark sedan, arguing before driving off. The boy clutched a red toy truck and the woman looked terrified. The tipster swears the man had a scar on his cheek, a fleeting glimpse in the night. A boy, a truck, a scar. 10 years later, the truth emerges, but it's a truth no one could ever unsee. November 1994, Willow Creek. A trucker's memory, AD. Woman, a boy, and a scarred man at a gas station in '84 sets the Carver case on a collision course with the truth. Constable Sarah Nguyen is racing against time to unravel what happened to Helen Carver and her grandson Jamie on that October night a decade ago. The note, "She lied," has pointed to Helen's secrets, from her possible past as Ellen, Marie to her hidden cache and plans to flee. But now, as Sarah closes in on Victor Cain, the loan shark with a vendetta, she realizes the truth is a house of cards, reflecting each more fragile and more deadly than the last. Was Helen a victim, a fugitive, or the architect of her own disappearance? And what did Jamie know that cost him everything? Sarah tracks the trucker, now a long-haul driver named Pete, who's reluctant to talk. He recalls the '84 sighting vividly, a woman in a heavy coat, a boy gripping a red toy truck, and a man with a scar, arguing by a dark sedan. Pete overheard the man say, "You can't run forever," before they drove north, toward the mountains. The boy looked scared, his eyes pleading, as if begging for help. Pete didn't intervene, a guilt that's eaten at him for years. Sarah pinpoints the gas station, a remote stop on Highway 63, and checks old records. A clerk's log from '84 notes a loud argument that night, involving a man matching Cain's description. It's the strongest evidence yet that Cain took Helen and Jamie, or forced them to go with him. Sarah dives into Cain's world, finding he's not dead, but living off-grid in northern BC, under an alias. She confronts him in a tense standoff at his cabin. Cain's older, harder, but his scar still stands out. He denies knowing Helen, but cracks when shown the knife photo, admitting he went to the Carver farm in '84, seeking Ellen Marie for his sister's hit and run. He claims Helen confessed to being Ellen, offering $10 to settle the debt, but he refused. "Blood for blood," he snarls, saying he swears he left them alive. Sarah doesn't trust him. Cain's history of violence paints a darker picture. But his story aligns with one detail. The cash, meant to buy freedom, never left the farm. Sarah returns to Willow Creek, haunted by Jamie's note. If Helen lied, was it to Cain, to Jamie, or to herself? She re-examines the loft, using UV light to reveal faint scratches on the floorboards, a child's drawing of a tree, with a star above it. It matches a real tree on the property, an oak, near the river. Sarah digs there, heart pounding, and finds a small metal box, buried shallow. Inside, a locket with Helen's photo, a child's drawing of a family, and a letter in Helen's hand, dated October 12, 1984. It reads, "If you find this, I'm gone. I lied to protect him. Forgive me, Jamie." The letter confirms Helen's deception, but not what she lied about or where they went. The final piece falls into place when Sarah traces Eleanor Harper in Denver. Eleanor, dying, confesses, Helen was Ellen Marie, her sister, who fled Vancouver after the hit and run, starting over as Helen Carver. In '84, Eleanor found her, urging her to run again as Kane closed in. Helen planned to take Jamie to Denver, but something went wrong. Eleanor received a call from Helen in November '84 whispering, "We're safe, but I can't come back." The line cut off, and Eleanor never heard from her again. Sarah believes Helen and Jamie escaped Kane, but vanished into a new life, leaving the note and clues as a safeguard or a cry for help. Sarah stands by the oak tree, holding Helen's letter. She looks out at the Alberta sky, realizing Helen and Jamie might still be out there, living under new names, forever hiding. But the note, "She lied," lingers, a question unanswered. What truth did Jamie know, and did it save him or doom them both? Thanks for sticking with FlickerSoul Story until the end. If you enjoyed it, give this a like and share if you haven't already, and subscribe for more.